Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we finished a little bit meeting Inquisitor Draken, and he let us, or gave us the information to go to the Forbidden Cathedral, which is Uther's tomb. So we're gonna jump into that.
Inquisitor, we see signs of recent struggle everywhere. Whatever this place is, it has been ravaged by chaos recently, and the hostiles must still be here.
I will explore the area.
So, this isn't related to Warhammer, but I heard rumors that there's a third, they're calling it like Middle-earth games, the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games. But there's apparently a third one being worked on, and it's going to be entirely open world instead of like just world zones. And I'm really excited for that. Rumor was we were supposed to hear about last year, but considering honestly just all game news last year was horrendous and just scattered throughout the whole summer realistically. And honestly, I feel like that's probably how it's going to be this year. I highly doubt we're gonna... I think they even canceled E3 already, which I don't think we're ever really gonna get another E3 again. It's cheaper, it's easier, and it's just more reasonable to have companies just give out information on their own time. It does suck. I always wanted to go to an E3, and if they're never gonna happen again, can't really go to them. But over the years I've heard they've gotten worse and worse, and the lines have gotten longer and longer. And at a certain point, that's just not fun. And I'm not big enough to go there as like a creator and just like schmooze with other creators. I'm just a dude on the internet. So there's no real reason or any leverage I could pull to be able to experience stuff there easily. But stuff with another Shadow of Mordor, I don't know what they're gonna call it. Shadow of Middle-earth. Admittedly, that would be really cool. Have a couple really, really big world zones. But I always enjoy those games. The Nemesis System, I think, is an amazing system. I've mentioned it before in videos, that it's phenomenally designed. It just sucks they copywrote it. I was talking with a friend of mine about this, because for the life of me, I can't understand how they copywrote this system. Because it was Digital Extremes, the guys behind Warface. Or not Warface, Warframe. My bad. Crytek did Warface. The guys behind Warframe, for their Kingpin system, they got like threatened with lawsuits, apparently, because it was like Monolith was like, you're encroaching on our design. And I was like, if that's 100% true, that's honestly complete bullshit, because there is no reason that would be the case. It is a mechanic. Yes, you cannot lift the Nemesis System, code line for code line. That's literally copyright infringement. That is copying shit without permission. But if I design a similar system that does the same thing, you can't sue me for that. Otherwise, you could have like John Carmack sitting here suing every other first-person shooter for riffing off of Doom. Oh, it's derivative work. That's the problem. Like, why would you do that? And then, honestly, if I had the rights to that stuff, I'd just be trying to license the program or the code out. You could get a lot of money off other studios who want to have a similar system, but don't have the knowledge, know-how, or the time to fully design and develop it. Granted, I don't know what their engines run on, and if it's proprietary engine stuff, then you're going to have that problem. I know that would be the problem with Destiny. Curse of proprietary programs. It's one thing I always hated is when studios would be like, oh, for this job you need to show us a skill test. I'm like, you have a proprietary engine. Anything I know is going to be by degrees worthless. But jumping back, I love the Nemesis system, because Generation 0 kinda has it, the rival system, but it's very, very bare bones. All it offers is enemies get stronger, they get more health, and then the higher level they are up to tier 4, the higher chance of you getting an experimental weapon from them. Which I think is a fine reward, but I think there needs to be a little bit more to making them dangerous. Because, like, oh yeah, fighting a Phoenix tank or a Phoenix hunter who's, level 4 who has a ton of health, yeah, that's gonna be tough. But also, I just use rockets and 50 cals. I don't care. A robot can be, as rough and tumble as he wants, but enough 50 cal rounds to a weak point will put him down. Hell, a lot of the time I sit there, especially with the tanks, is I blow off their weapons. You can't shoot me with your fancy autocannon if you don't have the autocannon. But so it's like, I wish that system would get fleshed out more and other studios would kind of start utilizing this. Prime example of a game that could use it, Elden Ring. You get enough kills in an area, a bunch of stuff happens, eventually NPC invaders start showing up. They're random gen for their stat lines, maybe some reward, maybe it's just souls, maybe it's, if you want to go real fancy, you bring back the blood gem system from Bloodborne. I thought that system was cool, let you customize weapons a little more. You could have altered slots, or even weapons with altered damage. A sword that has innate, fire damage, or weapons that might actually get, like, madness buildup, because there's only a handful that actually do it. And it's a good PvP tool, it's just, you don't get a lot of choice. But then, going back for this, I'm just going to call it Shadow of Middle-earth. This Shadow of Middle-earth game, some of the job listings and stuff mention the possibility of the Nemesis system for humans. And I'm a decent Lord of the Rings nerd. Yeah, you can be shocked all you want. The guy who plays D&D, likes Star Wars, plays a ton of video games, is also a fan of Lord of the Rings. But I'm just thinking, like, who you could have as human enemies, okay? Easy ones, Easterlings and Corsairs of Umbar. You could also include, just off the top of my head, the Black Numenorians. If you played Battle for Middle-earth 2, the Witch King DLC, they had them, which were pretty cool. They were under the Angmar faction. And then they had, like, sorcerers, which were really cool. And instead of just being like Gandalf, who can just sling spells with the swiftness, you actually had to have these sorcerers over time. They would generate cultist members, and then with the cultist members, they were also the currency to cast spells. So if you wanted to cast, like, this one that would barrage an area with corpses, it would take, like, 4 of your acolytes, and they would just die. And then if your caster got caught in combat, he doesn't have those guys to meat shield for him. And I think stuff like that would be pretty cool. I'd like to see the system honestly get really fleshed out and start going further. Like, you have the Olag High, which are kind of trolls, but you could do other trolls, you could do goblins to have their own traits. You could even do ice drakes, which are lesser dragons. Dragons like Smaug have effectively died. Their kind got wiped out in, like, the Second Age, for the most part. the only ones that escaped became lesser dragons, ice dragons or ice drakes, in the north and slowly started filtering back down south. Some of them can't even breathe fire, but you could introduce something like that. And I love the Nemesis system. No matter what, almost no matter what game you put it in, there are a few you can't, like Madden or Call of Duty, but short of those games, you can always find a use, and it makes things really interesting. Because then your world feels like it's evolving. You know, oh, you were doing this, and this guy was leveling up, this guy got new weapons, this guy now has this. And it makes everything so much more dangerous and interesting. Yeah, you can sit there and farm them out before they reach a level where they can be a danger to you. I've done that in Generation Zero. But you can also let them sit for a while, become a hazard, and really challenge yourself. And in Shadow of War, I always loved to get it. I hated the microtransactions. They were god-awful. Absolutely gimped the game to the point where people, especially in the past few years, if you play it online, like raiding people's castles, so many people use Cheat Engine to give them like orcs with every stat, and some that aren't even in the game. They would like cut content, they'll just put them in. But you know, the idea is cool. And I like doing like a fight club, having all my orcs fight each other, just to see who's actually the strongest. And I've said before, they could do that for a 40K game. I've pitched the idea, essentially just to you guys, of like a 40K Souls game, essentially Remnant from the Ashes, but 40K, and you could easily introduce that. Oh, you've been doing this. Well, now there's a Plague Marine who's gotten stronger. He's leading these guys now. He gets this item because you let him sit for too long. And he did a mission. Now he has, you know, relic war gear and all this stuff. And you can create stories. You know, you shift from just murking another Plague Marine to having a story of this guy who might have attacked planets and is causing all these problems, and you now have to bring him down. Alright, so we'll put that into resilience. We're gonna do XP. The warp damage bonus is good, I just don't have anything that deals warp. I'm kinda hesitant to do warp damage even though I need to. But now we get to go eliminate Black Legion.
Inquisitor,
And thinking more about what you could do with like a Nemesis system in 40K, an easy one would be to take Tyranids. You know, oh, you have a tendril of a Hive Fleet. Let's just go with the common one, Hive Fleet Leviathan. Okay, Hive Fleet Leviathan shows up. And because they're a tendril, they're kind of off operating on their own. And because you haven't beaten their leader, they evolve. They fight, let's say another event has caused Salamander Space Marines to show up in the area. After a few fights, if you haven't, like a few rests, effectively, they haven't been beaten, they evolve. Okay, they have because of their enemies, they have a higher chance of developing resistance to heat. suddenly they change a bit. Maybe their color changes to reflect this. You know, they fight a little more, maybe they develop some other resistance, or a certain thing is, like a certain mutation happens. Oh, they quote-unquote rank up, and gene stealers are more populous in their spawns. Suddenly, they start to kind of take on a life of their own, and like Tyranids do, evolve. And you have a Nemesis system creating new enemies. It's essentially a far better version of what Phoenix Point tried to do with the Pandorans. Because in that game, it was supposed to be this thing of like, oh, the enemies evolve, and depending on how they do, you might see this kind of enemy more. But I never really saw them like properly evolve to face you. And I never saw like something successful working and them evolving that trait more. It was more of, okay, here's early game builds, here's later game builds, here's late game builds of this creature. And that would be the thing to try to avoid, because that just gets boring. Especially because it becomes predictable.
Colossal tear in the void, an unrelenting flow.
Or another one would be, I've been working on a video, even though I haven't done one in ages now, is a salvage op video on Dust 514. If you're familiar with that game, it's the first-person shooter tie-in to EVE Online. And for that one, you could use a Nemesis system there. Especially when they talked about having rogue drones attack planets. You could easily start changing things based on resources in system, what has gotten higher kills in recent fights in this area versus what's been not as effective. You know, you could end up fighting railgun using E-war drones in one place, and then another place they might be using, you know, laser, like beam weapon tech, and be shield tanks. Another they might be armor tanks with rockets or grenades. Or I guess for Minmatar it'd be just explosive rounds. Turning every encounter into potentially a very different encounter. You could introduce, for the EVE side, you could have entire ships. Oh, this happened, so we're gonna spawn, you know, somewhat unique, or at least a character with a name pulled from a pool, obviously, but like a captain of a ship. Oh, this happened, so this spawns.
Inquisitor,
and creating kind of a
incoming
storyline for
the vessel
players.
is approaching the moon at considerable speed.
Stay alert and keep me updated.
And you could go as simple as introducing, especially the captain stuff, like they do in Warframe. Oh, you run a mission for, let's say you're fighting Serpenta. Actually, no, let's do Sancha's Nation, because Sancha Kuvaki and all of them are kind of cool with robot zombies. But you run a mission, there's a % chance of fighting and having something spawn. Or having just an event trigger that's like, oh, hey, we picked up like this weird beacon scanning this zone you're fighting in. Be careful. You know, a couple extra reinforcements show up. Might be a little bit tougher than normal. And then maybe you get an alert, maybe you don't, of the game saying, hey, this guy has been studying how you fight, and he's coming for you. You know, suddenly your whole encounter is different. And then next time you do a mission fighting like Sancha's Nation, there's a chance he'll spawn. and he might give, I don't know, you could give out any variety of things, you know, and there's a variety of things you could do, some being parts to like semi-unique ships. Think of it like, try to think of the best way to describe it. Battletech. Okay, yeah, Battletech's a great example. Well, Mech Warrior, Battletech, 6 of one, half dozen of another. We'll use Mech Warrior, because there's Mech Warrior 5. We'll use Battletech now that I say that, because Battletech actually let you collect fragments of a mech in the turn-based PC game. But you'd sit there, you get, instead of just like getting an urban mech, you might get a urban mech that it's a variant that starts with like an AC-20 autocannon. So you have to pick up, let's say it's the only one I can think of is I think a fire version. I think it's a fan made, which is urban mech 666. But you need like 3 chunks of parts. So you could sit there for Eve, you know, you might get I can't even think of a ship they use, a Nightmare. I believe they use those. And you might get a fragment of a ship. You know, you're getting parts. And after you collect so many parts, you can combine them, make a ship that is of a certain stat line. But they also might drop like captain rated gear or something like that to further incentivize it. Making semi-unique ships and rare loot and making it something you can't, like, you can farm it, but you can't be like, oh, I'm just gonna every 20 minutes get a kill. You can't do that. You know, you have RNG. And you could use the Nemesis system for that. Hell, you could even make it so there's a chance they, much like in Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, you can kill a guy and he can come back. You know, the only way you can successfully kill someone is decapitation, and even then it's not guaranteed to kill them. It's just a very high chance. But you could sit there and, I know I had a guy I ended up like poisoning, and his death, he came back all disfigured. It was really cool, because I was not expecting him to come back after a poisoning. But you could do stuff like that. Oh, this guy died to this, so now he's gonna come back and have a resistance, or he might use a certain thing more.
Inquisitor, the whole moon is trembling.
What's my inventory looking like? No, I don't want to equip. We'll just toss some of you. I don't need greens. But yeah, the Nemesis system is very easily usable. It's not even a matter of, oh, it's hard to figure out how to implement it in games. No.
The rest of the traitors must still be in the
It
main
is
engine.
dead simple.
I'm on my way.
You just have to think about it for a minute, and yeah, you might have to tweak a few things, change how, like, some of the parameters, but in general, it's viable. And honestly, I think this, like, trademark, copyright, no, like, you have to be super unique, otherwise we're gonna sue you for stealing our idea, which you can't really sue someone for stealing a general concept. But, you know, doing this is hurting games, because I think this could be used very well. And especially in games that are trying to keep, like, they're trying to retain players. They're trying to get that juicy metric of concurrent players and players playing every day and all this stuff. These kind of things keep people on. Stuff like this is good screen time over, you know, you have to micromanage a thing. I've dealt with enough games that do the bad parts of design for trying to get people to keep playing. And that's something me harping on here, but it's, I can't remember who said it, but when your metric becomes your goal, it is no longer a good metric. If you sit here and be like, oh, we have all these people spending, 2 hours a day playing the game, how do we get them to spend more time? That's no longer a measurement of like, oh, people are playing, it's how do we retain that? And that retention comes always at the cost of the experience being fun. Great example, Pokemon Go. They keep doing battles. Like, everything's battle related. Oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can keep you playing by doing battles. I don't care. I just like collecting Pokemon. What I would rather have is random trainers that are just generic, like the bug catchers and stuff like that I can battle for a couple items. Or be able to find fossils that I can, dig and uncover. Trees that I can hit that might drop apricorns I can turn into like unique Pokeballs, like the water ball or the net ball. Actually, I think it was the net ball. But ones like that would offer bonuses to certain types being caught. Things like that, where it's good screen time use because I'm doing, a little mini game, or I'm having fun doing different things, as opposed to just, hey, do this one thing that we just keep beating you over the head with. And especially when it becomes more and more forced. What's Van Winter have to say? Oh, actual mission stuff. I was waiting for another, side quest thing, but whatever. So, that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.